It's not like we haven't been doing this a long time that my uh, microphone was muted. So let me start over. Hey, everybody. I'm so glad you're with us. This is absolutely one of my favorite things to do with Woman Preach is to uh, honor and respect the elder ancestor Jarena Lee and the legacy that redounds through the years. Uh, I love this time because I get to talk to my friends and colleagues who have special affinity to her. And so tonight, I'm really, really excited that who's with us is Bishop Vashti Murphy McKenzie, who was the first woman ordained consecrated bishop of the African Methodist Episcopal Church, 107, 117th elected bishop of the AME Church. And she was ordained in 2000 as she was consecrated as a bishop in 2000. She was ordained earlier than that, but she did a documentary that we're going to talk about tonight. And we're going to hear a little bit about her own story as we get started. So come on into the room, Bishop Vashti, who I'm thankful to be able to call also my friend.
Thank you so much for having me. Thank you, friend. It is wonderful. We have watched each other's journey and been on each other's journey for quite a while, and the Lord
Yeah,
is so
I think we
good.
first met in 2005.
Wow.
Yeah, in Nashville, because you were we were doing something with I don't remember which district that is for the AME,
That's the
but
13th district presiding at
yes,
that time.
we were
I
doing
was.
something for the 13th district, and I
Mhm.
was there. So welcome. I'm so excited that you are here, and we're going to start by talking about your own journey. Not let's not start with the bishopric. Let's start with your call, where you were, how you knew God was calling you into ministry.
Well, I was minding my own business, like most of us were, and I had my cute little 5 and 10 year plans. I grew up in a house full of a family full of journalists, and so uh, when you get to be a teenager, no, I don't want to do that because all y'all are doing that. I want to do something else, and so I was in broadcasting, went into broadcasting, Christian broadcasting radio, and of course, gave my life to Christ and all of that. And I believe that I was fulfilling my faith mandate, that every believer must do something in the name of Jesus Christ, must serve somewhere. And so I was very comfortable on air every day and developing programs and projects. And I moved from, I was what they call drive time, became program director, operations manager, general manager, corporate vice president. I'm on my way to own my own station, right? Those are my plans. And God says, nope, I have something else for you to do. And so when I'm on air, what happens is you talk to people. Most people don't know that, but people are on the phone and you're talking to them and they call in the station, you're talking to them. And what I saw was that there were a whole lot of people who were falling between the cracks. They were just not receiving the ministry that they really need. And so I was praying. I said, well, God, what are we going to do with these folks? And the Lord just said, gather 7 people, wise and full of the Holy Spirit, Acts 6 chapter, right?
Right.
Wise and full of the Holy Spirit. And you go make sure that the Greek and the Jewish orphans and widows are taken care of. And I invited 9 people, 7 showed up, and God says, I told you 7. And 7 came. And we put
You can't count. You can't count that.
and so we
The
came
Holy
together.
Spirit will jack you up,
Yeah,
really,
in a minute, right?
in a
And
minute.
so we came together, we put together this group and we called it just a service program. It's just a service program. At the end of the day, somebody says, oh, you have a ministry. I said, oh, no, are you kidding? Oh, no, no. No, this is just like a community service project. We're just trying to help people who are falling between the cracks. We wanted to give a hotline because I was on the phone. I said, listen, I got to run my shift. I got to run the station. I can't be on the phone praying with you, ministering to you, although that's what you needed. So we put together a hotline, right? At the end of the day, out of those 7 people, 3 ended up becoming bishops, 5 became preachers,
Wow.
4 became pastors. You know what I'm saying? I'm going like, what? And I just, I ran like anybody
Which
else
is an
runs.
indication that you're a bishop, a pastors. No, really.
Yeah.
You mentored people into their ministry while you were being mentored by the Holy Spirit into your ministry.
I never saw it that way. I never saw it the
Mhm.
way, I looked at the story of all of us running in all these different directions, but God pulls us together into this place. And that's really what happened. I finally said yes. And when I said yes, there's this incredible peace that comes over your life.
Yeah,
And sometimes God has to shut doors, and God's just started shutting doors. Boom, 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 boom. Until you say, okay, God, what is this all about? He said, how many times you want me to tell you?
yeah.
How many times I have to
Or
knock
more
on.
can be said than has not already been said, as the
Right,
song says. Yeah.
right,
I
all of that.
Here's a piece that you may not know about me. My degree was in communication, and my first work was in newspaper and radio.
Huh.
Isn't that weird? And it's just
And it's great because I look at that as a training ground.
it is,
It's a
and it
training ground.
was.
Yeah.
One of the things I think that happens when you're doing radio and or paper is it fires your curiosity, and you get good at asking questions, and then
Mhm.
as a preacher that helps you to get good at asking questions about the text.
Correct, correct. And you get comfortable in front of the audience. You
Right,
get comfortable in front of people that you don't know, strange people, and you have to get information out of them.
right.
Because you have to get him, and you have to do it quickly and say it succinctly because you don't have a lot of time. Time is ticking away, and so it was a great training ground for me because I'm a wonderful introvert, and I think God has a sense of humor of calling introverts into a very extroverted ministry, right?
Yeah. And people think when you say I'm an introvert, people's like, no, you're not. I'm like, no, you don't understand. I can go crawl under a rock when I'm done. And God,
Mhm.
I don't want to be around y'all after I'm done. I can be public because that's
Yeah.
the call, to be public.
Mhm.
But when I'm
Mhm.
done, I'm done. I can come in, get in my jammies, and not think about. I'll tell you what it was during the COVID shutdown. I told somebody it took me about 9 months before I really started missing people.
Wow.
But that's
Wow.
the introvert in me. I was cocooning.
Wow.
I was catching up with myself because we rip and run so much, you don't have time to catch up with yourself.
No, you don't. No, you don't. No, you don't. But a hallmark for introverts is how you recharge your batteries, and that's
Right.
why after you're out peopling, right, and doing ministry and doing all of that, it's a trialogue all day long. You, God, and the people. You, God, and the people. And extroverts recharge their batteries in a crowd. I mean, when they're done, hey, let's go to dinner. Let's go here. Let's go there. The introverts are going to say, I've done enough now.
Going to my room.
You'll be back after a while, right?
Look, people didn't understand how I could have the gift of hospitality and be an introvert. It's because I could lay the spread, open the door, and retreat to my room when I needed to.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And they
You
go,
know,
where is she? Oh, she'll be back. Be all
she'll
right.
be back. Yeah. Tell me about when you went to train as a minister. Where did you go to school and all of that?
I went to Howard Divinity School in Washington, D.C.
I can
Uh,
hear all the Howard people going, "H you
you
know."
know, there were options. I mean, at that time, St. Mary's had an ecumenical seminary, so you didn't have to be Catholic. It was very ecumenical to go to, and there were other, Virginia Union. But I went to Howard because I wanted to study under the scholars that were there, Dolores Carpenter,
Right.
Kane Felder, Eugene Rice. And I wanted to because I was in a predominantly African American denomination, I thought I just needed to be in an African American setting so that I can be prepared not only in biblical and theology and church administration, but also be prepared in a context in which I was going to serve. And
When
it
were
was a
you?
great journey.
I can imagine. I did not go to an HBCU, but I don't thoroughly regret that, but I do understand that decision. If I were making it again, I would do something different. But I don't
Well,
regret the
yeah.
education I got. I just think looking back, oh, if I could do it again, I would definitely go to an HBCU or HBTI, Historical Black Theological Institute as well.
Yeah, well, you go where you're drawn, and I was drawn there. I graduated from the University of Maryland, College Park, so I'd already been in that environment. I wanted to go in the other environment, and it was a good journey. It was actually a good journey. We were all masochistic. Anytime you take more than one course from Kane Hope Felder, he was an absolute challenge, but he challenged us, and I think we were all better for it. We were absolutely all better for it.
I have heard that many a time about him. Tell
Mhm.
me about the ordination. How long after finishing your divinity degree?
I was ordained. I was already ordained in the Methodist tradition. We have two ordinations. One is the diaconate, and
You were ordained a
then
deacon. Yeah.
so I was already ordained in the diaconate, and then I, went through seminary, and then right after seminary, I was ordained elder.
And I know most AME pastors, maybe it's just the bishops. So you tell me. Eventually, you have to do an overseas jaunt. So can you talk about that?
Yeah, 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 yeah. Well, when I served in, 20 years in the pastorate, and then I was elected in 2000. My first assignment was in Africa, of course. That's where you go. So everybody doesn't, depending upon how many bishops are elected and how many are retiring. But I went, and I wouldn't take nothing from a journey. It was very fulfilling. Yes, it was challenging to
Which part of
do.
Africa were you in? Liberia or Ghana?
No, I was in Southeast Africa. I had
Oh,
four
wow.
countries: Botswana, Swaziland, Mozambique, and Lesotho. Those four countries in
Wow.
that southeast corner, from
Right.
the Kalahari Desert all the way to the Indian Ocean. And
Wow.
so it was for me, it was a homecoming. I had been to Africa before, but there's nothing like being in worship, and
Yes.
the people are speaking their native language. They worship in their native language, sing in their native language, pray in their native, go through the liturgy in it. But the power of the Holy Spirit, that you don't know what they're saying, you can feel the power of the Holy Spirit.
Right.
And you just sit there and they say, "Oh, Bishop is crying." I said, "Yes, because I could feel the presence of God
Right.
and the presence of Holy Spirit." And you can just imagine, this is how my ancestors worshiped.
Right. Did you learn any of the languages, or were you always with interpreter?
Always had an interpreter, but you learn the language, and the people appreciate this. You learn enough to say hello, how are you, and which way, and do we go, and da da da. The pleasantries of language, and then you learn the language of the liturgy. And so, the way I got through is that I learned how to start the song. I learned, there's about 10
You
words.
have a lovely singing voice, by the way. I just want to acknowledge that.
Mm, sometimes.
Well, all of it is sometimes, but you get what I'm saying.
Yeah, but it
So
was
you
really,
know how to start the song.
yeah, we had to start song. Yeah. And they appreciate it. I wore native dress. I wore the garments of the communities that I, was in. Most of the time they wore Western garments. So they go like,
Right.
okay. But it was great. I think the AIDS pandemic was at its height,
Yeah.
and the governments were doing as much as they could in a very ultra conservative climate. They didn't talk about sexuality public,
Right.
and they didn't talk about intimate relationship public outside of the home, and husbands and wives didn't talk about it. And so it was very like controversial when here's the information on how you can contract AIDS, and this is what you need to do to protect yourself. So that was very, very controversial conversation. But people didn't understand how the other impact of it. There was medication, $100 pill,
Right.
and you have to take $100 pill at the same time every day to be effective when people are not wearing watches. So how
Right.
they're going to take it the same time every day, $100 pill. And $100 pill, that family may only make $100 in that year.
Right.
So do we eat or do we die? Do we take the medicine or do we provide for our family? Then there are other ways in which it was transmitted. In the poorest of the section, there may be only one bed in the whole family. Everybody else slept on pallets. But when a woman gave birth, she didn't stay on the pallet. She was put in the bed, the same bed where someone who has been affected by AIDS, whose body fluids are on the sheets. She's laying there. They cut the umbilical cord with the razor that the man of the house has been shaving, who has AIDS. And so you have the razor with the blood mingling with the blood of the umbilical cord. Then you have one pot to cook in, right? The same pot that you wash clothes in is the same pot you cook rice in. And then you tell people they need to have rubber gloves on their hands, right? For sanitation, when they can't afford, like, do I buy food or do I buy rubber gloves? Do I buy food or buy rubber gloves? And so it was a challenge. So we wanted to do something significant to be able to help the people in the area. So we built 3 group homes for children who are orphaned by AIDS, because we found that the 12-year-olds were raising their kids because the parents are sick or had died. And in Africa, in certain parts of Africa, if the children are not kept close to their ancestral homes, they will not be able to inherit the land.
Right. Now I
And
did know that.
so we wanted to keep them close to their ancestral land so they could at least know their relatives. Now that it's been, 23 years, 22 years since that house, the children have graduated, they have gone to college, they have jobs, they come back to mentor the new crop of children who were there. And then there was this myth going around that a virgin could cure you. So you had these older men who are now
Rape.
marrying these babies.
Right. Yes,
Right.
I remember that.
Yeah. And so fathers would be happy to marry their young girls, because girls are a liability, they're not an asset. Boys are an asset because they can work. And so we, in Botswana, we set up a program to train young girls to do certain skills so they can bring income into the house and won't be subject to be sold off, for someone who's looking for a virgin, thinking that they could live because they are, you know.
I just think what you're describing is just powerful ministry. I think a lot of times, all ministers, but I'm thinking about women right now, think they have to. I mean, I know you were there as the bishop, but you had to see what you were going to do as ministry. So I think what I'm trying to get is oftentimes people go and just want to say, oh, I don't know what I can do. It's like part of it is look and see. You
Mhm.
know, what is the need, and pay attention to that. And then you figure out what needs to happen. And that's what you just described. I appreciate that. I'm going to switch because this conversation, as I told you, is about our patron saint, Jarena Lee. And you are in the line and heritage of that great woman. Can you talk about, before we talk about the documentary you did, which I want to do, can you talk about the impact of knowing about Jarena Lee in your own ministry as an AME pastor and then bishop?
Well, Bishop Ann Henning Byfield gave me
May she
the
rest
honor.
in peace, my great sister.
Yes, yes, yes. And we miss her. We miss her.
We do.
She gave me the autobiography of Jarena Lee. That's the first time I heard of it. We were young. We were like teenagers, and in our AME life of running into each other, going in and out of conferences, and we became friends. And she gave me the book, and that was my first introduction to her. And that her story captured me. Is sort of like being arrested by her story. And so when I did my doctoral project, I did it on women in ministry, much to the consternation of those who were around me at the time. Like, no, you don't want to do that. You want to do this. No, you don't want to do that. No, I want to do this. You want to do this because I can't find this information anywhere. And if she hadn't written her autobiography, we would have never known.
We would have never known.
We would have never known. And so I look at Jarena Lee. Her story is two things: emancipation and empowerment. It is the emancipation of women, redefining the leadership role of the church. And as a daughter of Jarena Lee, God allowed my election and consecration to redefine the role of leadership in the 21st century. So 200 years between us.
200 years.
Yeah.
You talk about being the first consecrated woman bishop with that in your mind, with the Jarena Lee, on your shoulder, kind of like I think about her watching you from the balcony of heaven, as we say, and cheering you on. What was it like to be consecrated?
Let me tell you, it is
one picture of your consecration, and I broke into crying just looking at the picture. So I can't imagine what it was like to be there.
Yeah, it was really a cataclysmic experience, and was really kind of shocked at how people were interested in it. They sent a New York Times reporter was there on the general conference floor, and the Washington Post. And I'm trying to be politically astute, like where I need to be, where I need to go, what needs to happen. I'm watching, because they don't tell you everything, so you just got to figure it out, right? And the reporter says, "Well, how do you feel?" I said, "Not right now." Not right now. Not until they announce what the vote is. And then we're not talking until we're paying attention. We're paying attention to God. But it was a very awesome experience. And I say all the time that if God did this for me, there's no telling what God would do for you. Truly, it was, all the pundits, political pundit, is not going to happen, Mackenzie. It is not going, don't, come back next time. No woman, it hasn't happened for any other woman. The lay organization under Jamie Coleman Williams put together a resolution to pass before the general conference that a woman be elected on the first ballot, and that failed. And the people said, "Mackenzie, hey, girl, it ain't happening. It's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. It's not going to happen." But in order for that resolution to pass, you had to have at least 800 votes. It had 600 votes. So in my mind, all I need to do is find 200 more votes and we can get in. Now they're saying like, it's over, it's done. I'm saying like, I just need 200. Where can we find these 200 people? We'll find these 200 people. And then when it happened,
which ballot were you elected on? Do you remember?
Oh yes, you remember everything.
I kind of figured you did, but I thought I'd ask.
Yes, I was elected number 2 on the second ballot.
Wow.
Yeah. Richard Norris was elected 1, and we were only separated by a few votes. It wasn't like, it was only a few votes in the count in our separation. But it was just an awesome thing, and it's so much. You try not to be shocked. You try not to be shocked and overwhelmed in the moment. I wanted to be representative of Christ, making sure the Lord got all of the glory out of that moment. and out of my, Episcopal career. But I also wanted to thank everybody who had done anything. So in my acceptance speech, I just wanted to go down and I thanked the district, thank the Don. I wanted to thank all the women who were never ordained, all the women who they were told you're crazy, who had nowhere to preach, who never had an opportunity to pastor, who preached on street corners and at bus stops, in front of the mirror at home because there was no place to preach and nobody was calling their name to be preached, just like Jarena Lee. Nobody was looking for her. Nobody was calling for her. Nobody was expecting her to do anything.
Or the 2,000 miles of travel she did to preach the gospel. Let
Right.
me tell you, what at what point did you know God was calling you to submit to the vote for bishopric?
Uh, that's a hard decision, and it's like a call. It's just like the call that
Right.
you answer to preach. It's a call to answer for this. And that was not on my mind. All I wanted to do was be the best preacher I could and to be the best pastor I could. And I figured if I did that, then, it would be a well done, good and faithful servant moment.
Right.
But the hand of the Lord is in your back. When we come to the beginning of every annual conference, my habit was to stand before the congregation and lay out the vision for the coming year. I did that 20 times, right? And this time I'm standing in the pulpit and I'm laying out the vision. And God clearly said to me, don't you understand that what I'm giving you, it is not for this congregation.
Wow.
These are models of ministry that you will replicate all over the world. And I just started to cry. Now, rule number one is never let them see you sweat, never let them see you
Never
cry,
let
right?
see you cry. Right. I passed you for 27 years. I get it.
I'm just going like, oh, and my administrator, church administrator's on the pulpit, and she comes behind me and she says, God just called you to the episcopacy, didn't he? Yes, he did. Oh God, he did. And my husband, he's looking at it and he knows rule number one. He says something is up. Something has just happened. And my son, he's saying like, wait, something's going on. Mom, don't do this, right?
Right.
And both of them jump up out of the congregation and stand on either side and be like, we don't know what's going on, but we're going to stand with you. And they did. And
Yeah.
they did. And that was the moment. It was like cataclysmic moment.
I saw Brother Stan as, people say bodyguard, but that's not how I perceived him in your life as your life partner. I perceived him as somebody who, I don't even know what the word is to say, who really understood the call on your life
Mhm.
and was
Mhm.
protecting that call as much as he was protecting you. Is that a fair assessment on my part of him?
Yes. Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. And it was a part of our relationship. We were married, longer than most people been living. And we started out saying, whatever your dream is, I'm with you and I'm for your dream. And that's how it was. Stan, whatever your dream is, we're gonna work it and we're gonna make sure that dream comes true. And he said, whatever your dream is, we're gonna work it and make sure it comes true. And so that's how we were. And so that's how we were as an Episcopal team in the pastorate as well as the Episcopal team.
Mm-hmm.
Now he was protective now, and
He
there are times
was.
very protective. At times I had
I
to look
rolled
at
up on you one time and he put his hand out to go. I was like, no, she's expecting me. I was like, no, really. And I appreciated that though, because
Mhm.
I was like, because I appreciated that. Let's
uh,
switch to this project that you did. So I need to tell our audience that I'm slightly jealous that I'm not in this documentary, but it's not the bishop's fault. The bishop invited me to be in this, and my schedule just would not allow me to get there for the recording, but I'm so proud of this documentary. Talk about this documentary you did on Jarena Lee, and we're going to see a couple of clips. So let's show the first clip, and then you talk about it.
Okay.
How you decided to do it and all of that. So Tierney, if you'll show the intro clip to this documentary.
Jarena Lee, the first Black preaching woman in the African Methodist Episcopal Church, is recognized across Black Christendom as a mother of Black and white preaching women.
She's a proto-womanist. Tell her that she can't preach, she's going to preach anyway.
Jarena Lee is the pioneer for women in ministry.
She squared her shoulders and occupied the space that was hers to occupy.
This woman would not back down.
She understood the moment, and she rose to the moment because she knew her calling.
She was arguing for the equality of men and women in the leadership of the church.
Jarena Lee is important because she gives place and position for Black women in ministry today.
I love that opening. So tell me how you decided to do the documentary and just the process of it.
Well, the documentary really tells her story. We wanted to be as close to first as her telling her story as possible. When you go through the documentary, we use clips from the autobiography. So it's like in her own words, she's telling her story on film in this 21st century medium. And we wanted the academy to come, the scholars to come, who are also daughters of Jarena Lee, to come and share their story about her. And so how do we get to doing a documentary on Jarena Lee? I've been doing documentaries for 16 years. Most people don't know that.
I did not know that.
Mm-hmm. It started with Katrina.
Oh, okay.
It started with Hurricane Katrina, and I was all the things that you saw in the media was not the Black church. And I knew, because I was in Tennessee, I'm talking to people on the phone. I knew the Black church was responding, but when you looked at ABC, NBC, CBS, you didn't see it.
Right.
And so I said, we have to go. We're going to have to capture these stories. And of course, I didn't have any money. And I said, hey, do you have $5,000 I can have? You have 10,000, you have whatever. And they gave the money. We put a film crew down in New Orleans and Mississippi for 2 weeks and came back with a documentary called Survivor Stories. And then after that,
where do we see that? Do we know Survivor's Story? That's the name of it?
It's called Survivor Stories. Well, this is all pre-AI, all pre-social media.
Oh, okay.
So it aired on TV One, cable station, TV One, and it aired on PBS in California.
Oh, I wonder then if it's on YouTube somewhere.
It might be. Now, yes, you'll be able to see pieces of it at Payne Theological Seminary.
Okay.
Now Payne Theological Seminary is where we do these documentaries. We've done 6 and getting ready to do 7. So I always wanted to do Jarena Lee. Thank God for Dr. Michael Brown at Payne. Mm-hmm. And he said, so what do you want to do, Mackenzie? I said, well, I really want to do Jarena Lee. And we made the proposal and he said yes, and off we went. It took us almost 2 years, year and a half, 2 years to get it done, to get everybody in place. We did 2 separate filmings, one in Atlanta and then the last one in Philadelphia. So we got archival photos, interviews, videos, all the living women bishops in the AME Church talking about her in this documentary. I always felt that we needed to get certain people on film, and I'm still trying every single day to get people because we want to capture their words while they're here.
Yes.
And so when I went back to look at the clips so that you could see something today, I looked and I said, Bishop Byfield is no longer with us.
Exactly, which is why I'm glad we have that clip, because we're going to show it again. Show that now, not just yet, Tierney. Tierney, my brain is just going crazy. But before we show that, talk about the process of the church ordaining Jarena Lee in 2016, all those years after she was ministering in the world? Talk about 2016 and her posthumous ordination.
Well, that idea was born in the Women in Ministry organization of the AME Church. Dr. Teresa Fry Brown and others nurtured that idea and brought that idea forward. And it took years. It didn't just happen, and then it just happened. It took years of writing, petitioning the Council of Bishops, then getting it into the council, and then going through all the discussion, and then finally that's why it's wonderful you have more than one woman, because once you make a motion, you got a second, right? So you get
you need a second.
To get it, the vote on the floor of the council, and then the council passed it. And so 2016 really was a good capstone year because Jarena Lee was in Philadelphia. The General Conference was in Philadelphia. It's the 50th General Conference. So that's a historic process that all came together. Anne-Marie Mingo, Dr. Anne-Marie Mingo, they did a pilgrimage to her gravesite, which is right outside of Philadelphia.
Right.
And got it cleaned up and marvelous and wonderful. So it took a whole lot of women coming together so that she could be honored in this way. And so in the documentary, towards the end of the documentary, we got the official historical film that shows the moment that she was received the order of ordination.
Let's show that right now. Tierney.
I remember in 2016 when Jarena Lee was finally ordained. My only regret is that she wasn't alive to see it for herself.
It was really personally symbolic for me because in 2016, I was elected a bishop. And I remember the ceremony. As I sat in my delegation, I wept. I wept because we were correcting the wrong, and that it served for little girls and for women in the church.
At this 50th quadrennial session of the General Conference of the African Methodist Episcopal Church, 200 years after this phenomenal woman answered God's call to go preach, the Council of Bishops of the African Methodist Episcopal Church, having reviewed the life and legacy of Jarena Lee, examined her unquestionable devotion to God, now posthumously conferred the order of itinerant elder on Jarena Lee on behalf of the African Methodist Episcopal Church.
My God.
And it just sends chills up your spine.
Woo! So powerful. That is so powerful.
Mm-hmm.
But we're going to take a break here in a moment before we do Q&A. But can you say what your hopes are for Daughters of Jarena Lee now, Bishop?
My hope is that for women in the ministry now who are at the table, that they have access to the same salary and compensation package, the same opportunities for pulpits, that their voices are not just heard, but they are respected, not just tolerated, and that as they are doing now, continue to prepare yourself for whatever promotion or whatever journey or whatever place that God has you to be. My prayer is also that the women in the academy will have an opportunity to be just as respected in the Methodist tradition as women who are pastors. So we tend to get myopic. Ministry is only pastoring, that's it. And we forget that there's also chaplaincy, right, and there's the academy, and there's a whole plethora of ministry. And it should be every ministry valued and every ministry heard, and every ministry has a part to play in whatever denomination or communion where you serve.
That is so good. We're going to take a break. Tierney, you're on. We're going to take a break, and we're going to come back and do the Q&As, the questions that you have for Bishop. Get them in your mind, and Tierney and I will be watching for them. I saw one about whether you thought Amanda Berry would ever be, Smith would ever be ordained, and so we'll come back to that. All right, Tierney and Dion Boisset, who is the chair of the board for Woman Preach, you're on. Bishop, take a break if you need to.
This conversation is so powerful, and seeing Bishop Ann, and it makes tears to my eyes. Bishop, you mentioned call and legacy. You mentioned not just the call to preach, but the call to answer. And you also, in talking about your time serving, where there was a need to choose between medication or food and feeding your family, and then whether we're going to eat or whether we're going to just die. And that is not just the truth still for our siblings in Africa, but that there is truth in that right now. So in these particularly challenging times, we know for certain it is the preached gospel, the factual gospel, the grounded gospel that is based in truth and reality. It matters to each of us. And so we're doing this work at Women Preach, not because it's lucrative and not because it's easy and not to be liked, but again, to do, as you mentioned, it's Jarena Lee's mission to emancipate and empower the voices of women and those that are on the margins. And we are saving lives with the gospel. So your resources are powerful. And there is so much talk these days about where we're not to spend your money, but not a lot of feedback or talk about where to invest it. And so today I'm telling you that this evening, Women Preach is a worthy investment. And I know it for myself. Because when God's voice, when God sounded different in my own throat, Woman Preached, help me to articulate it and find the space to say that though my speech was impacted, I lost my fluency. Woman Preach helped me to realize and articulate that I did not lose my voice. Your dollars are a statement about what you believe in, where you see your hope, and where even if you can't find your hope, how to find the community that will help you locate it again, and what will help you fuel your soul, so that what you need, not just to survive in these times, but to be empowered in these times, your dollars make the statement where you invest it. And so we don't have a problem sharing with you that you are included here. Your gifts make such a difference. And I really pray that you include us in your intentional efforts to be a change agent, to partner with us, to be warriors and ambassadors of truth, and then to believe with us together that we can continue the legacy of Jarena Lee to emancipate and empower. And our ask tonight is for our academy in her name, Jarena Lee's Preaching Academy Scholarship Fund. It's an all-inclusive academy now, and I'm excited about that. All year long, our cohort will meet next year, and we provide an immersive education and practice in womanist and justice-centered, compelling, and prophetic preaching. Go to our website, womanpreach.org. And I want you to know that this network of preachers and activists and chaplains and those who believe in the liberative voice and the ones who are still empowered by the gospel of Jesus Christ and who believe still in equity and justice for the sake of our salvation and freedom. We need you. And this is a worthy place to invest your dollars, invest your prayers, and invest your time. So come partner with us. And thank you again, Bishop. Thank you again, Dr. Valerie, for the vision. And thank you again, all of you who are watching us and have been with us and sticking with us is, I know, living out the call that we have been called to serve, but also, as you said, Bishop, the call to answer. Thank you. God bless you.
Thank you. Thank you, Dion. As you see, if you're planning to give tonight, what you will be giving to is the Jarena Lee Preaching Academy Scholarship Fund. We're specifically wanting this donation to go to that fund. If you want to give to our general fund, you can do that as well. But we really are trying to raise scholarship funds for the academy that we do every other year. It's a week intensive, Bishop, where we bring women of African descent in and give them both time to explore different ways of preaching, but also to build community and relationships and to find what God sounds like in your own throat. So that's what tonight's offering is for. And I appreciate you, Reverend Dion, for sharing that. Okay, back to our conversation. Bishop, so one of the questions was, do you ever think Amanda Berry Smith will be posthumously ordained?
I think if there is, an organized way to bring her name forward as Jarena Lee. Jarena Lee is sort of like, becomes the superstar because when she stood up to preach, she interrupted somebody's preaching.
Right, because it was so bad. She said he was failing miserably.
Failing miserably. And
I love that. That's one of my favorite things. He was failing miserably.
Yeah, so that was the cat. But Amanda Berry Smith, missionary, evangelist, preacher, went to India, England, really, Jarena Lee was between Pennsylvania and Maryland and Delaware.
Ohio. She came to Ohio.
Yeah, there. But Amanda went overseas, went to the continent all the way to India. So I think if there's a concerted, solid effort and people are willing to be persistent, because that's how it's going to have to be. It's going to have to be persistent. It can happen.
What changes do you see are needed in the church? You talked about freedom and liberation. Where are the places where you still see we need to be pressing in by the power of the Holy Spirit. So this is not just protest for protest's sake, but where you see the church needs to expand this vision and dreams and commitment even to the gospel.
Right. We haven't yet gotten to the place where we see discrimination against women in ministry as compounded disenfranchisement. When the majority of the troops, boots on the ground, if you will, of the church are women.
No matter which denomination.
No matter where. And even in seminary, the majority of the students are women. And conflict continually being denied places of leadership when the call is evident, their skills and their gifting are evident, and they're competent and conserved. But what happens is the same thing that happened to Eve. One woman's mistake becomes every woman's mistake.
Right.
One man's mistake is just him.
That's good, Bishop. And true. That
reflect on
that again. Mm-hmm. One woman's mistake becomes every woman's mistake. One man's mistake becomes his mistake. I mean, it's the same thing with race. We don't blame the whole white Caucasian race when one person behaves badly, but then Black people become a Black misstep or wrongdoing becomes a commentary on the whole race.
Yeah, it does. And that's why I say we have to get to the place where we respect each other, respect the uniqueness of each other. We tend to, the church tends to look at men against women, women against men, rather than looking at each other with our own set of uniqueness. Right. And so, I don't have statistics and data, but as I watch women in ministry, if they get to the church, it's going to look a whole lot better. If they do nothing else, when you come in, them pews are going to be brand new, the carpet's going to be fresh, the walls going to be painted.
I saw that with the AME sister friend of mine in Detroit. What you just said, she was like, "Oh no, we got
God." She walks in. I remember when I walked into my first little church up in Cecil County, Maryland, and I stood in the pulpit and I looked and I said, "Dust." When was the last time somebody was up here? What? Oh no! This no. You don't keep your house like that. We didn't keep it God's house. This not gonna happen. But we look at the uniqueness of women as a threat rather than a blessing, and that mind shift has to shift. That we're all on the same team. We're all on the same side. Right. And if God wanted the salvation story to be all male, he would have worked it that way. But the salvation story includes both men and women, period. And each of them, each gender has a role to play. And so we're not here, we're unique. Respect us, receive us, respect our gifting.
Yes. Any other questions? Because I got plenty. So how do you reconcile the nominal voices of women in leadership in the Bible? I think I need more, but how do you reconcile the nominal voices of women in leadership in the Bible? I don't know what that means.
If you're talking about how come there's not a whole bunch of women in the Bible, they're there. They're there. And of course, our suspicion is that some of them were written out. They didn't survive the proof text or the editors.
The editors, the cutting floor. They didn't make it on the cutting floor.
Right, but they're there. They're absolutely there, from the Old Testament to the New Testament, with a variety of ministry. With Dorcas, Dorcas is there. She might be your missionary. Priscilla is there. She's your co-pastor. Mary is the woman at the well is there. She's your evangelist, that spark plug evangelist that goes back into a hostile environment and says, "Come see a man that's told me everything about yourself." You have Miriam,
I
who's in the
think the
music
one
room.
I like is in Romans 16, Junior, who
Yes.
many translations changed Junior's name to Junius because they can't imagine an apostle named Junia, which is a feminine form of a word. So at least in the text, in the Greek, it's a woman.
Yes, 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 yes. And I like Dr. Renita Weems, who talks about that when they were casting lots to replace, you know who, right? It should have been Mary Magdalene. It should have been her.
Yeah. What if they'd have taken the one who actually came back with the word from Christ, that he was risen, as opposed to casting lots and naming Matthias, who ain't none of us heard from since they named him.
Right. Right. Absolutely. But they're there if we just take that as understanding the question that you're asking.
Right. Any other questions? Bishop, while we're waiting on the next questions, you are in your second or third act. I'll call it your third act, because you were a pastor and then you were a bishop, and you're now, I don't know what the title is at the National Council of Churches, but talk about that too.
Well, there was always a sense, like
what is the actual title at the National Council of Churches?
President and General Secretary.
Okay, President and General Secretary. Okay.
And so I provide executive leadership for 37 denominations.
Right.
And providing executive leadership for one Episcopal district and sitting among colleagues, 20 other colleagues, is about as much as one lifetime can handle. Now I have an opportunity to sit among bishops and archbishops and presiders and presbyters and moderators of 37 organizations. So you can imagine that's multiplied by 10. But it's good work. And I have been in advocacy and activism all my life. And so I look at it as an expansion of ministry. So as a pastor, I'm in charge of, I direct the ministry traffic for one church in one neighborhood. As a bishop, you direct the ministry traffic of a country or two countries or two states or three states, and now in this role, I have an opportunity to help direct the visible unity ministry of 37 denominations. So it is an increase of ministerial responsibilities.
I want you to know, Kimberly Rusaw, Dr. Rusaw says you're the hardest working and relevant retiree she's ever seen.
My children said, "You're not retired, Mom. You're not retired. Isn't that what retirement looks like?" I said, "Well, yeah."
Yeah, I know. Your children like retired. What? A friend of mine calls it retreading because he didn't retire either. Oh, I just retreaded. There's a question that says about where we can find the documentary, where we can see the one on Jarena Lee.
That was released at the General Conference, but it'll be released in March for Women's History Month, and it will be on the Christian Recorder, which is the newspaper arm of the AME Church, and we will be showing it there. And it'll be posted again. It should be on the Payne Theological Seminary's website, but if it's not there, it'll come up again the 1st of March.
Okay, so Women's History Month, yay. What's your next project? You said you had several more in your belly.
I do. We have a quadrennial theme with the AME Church, and it's likely going to become a documentary on connecting our connection. So, but we were absolutely blessed after pursuing several years. We received NCC, meaning we received a $5 million multi-year grant to tell compelling Christian stories in several different categories in diverse media. And one of those media is a mini docu series.
Right.
And so I'm excited about it. Happy for it. Just like, wow, God, you waited until late afternoon.
Is a Lilly grant? Is that
Yes.
the Lilly storytelling grants?
Yes.
Yeah. Though I am excited. I personally am excited to see what comes out of those grants, because I think I'm with you. I think there's so many stories that have been lost into, that are going to the grave, that we don't have the that we need to know.
Yeah.
Who's gonna do the documentary on you?
I don't know. I'm doing them on everybody else. I'm doing it on everybody else. But I tell you what I'm looking for. I'm looking for a researcher. A part of the process. We need to update our history for MCC from the 1960s and forward. So I need a researcher. I need a coder. We're going to be gathering somewhere between 50, 75, and 100 stories a year. And those bad boys need to be coded so we can find them when we need to find them, and they don't get lost. So it's like a.
I hope y'all hear the call. I hope y'all hear her saying, I need. Say again what you need, Bishop. Put it out in the air.
Researcher. So like once we interview somebody, we need to fact check and make sure those stories are true, that they're just not talking just to be talking. But then we have an archives in Philadelphia that has the history of NCC from the 1950s forward. And we need some researchers to go in there and open those boxes and pull that data and information out so that we can update our history and move it forward. Coders, like librarians, we need that too. We're searching for a creative director who understands multimedia and be able to work with editors and producers and camera people and all that kind of wonderful stuff.
So here's a question. Will the Jarena Lee documentary be translated into other languages so that more people can learn about Jarena Lee?
That's an interesting question. And thank you for asking it. And that may be something that we put forward to Payne and ask them, let's take a look at this and see how we can do that.
Right. That would be great. And given particularly the reach of the AME, that would be great. Here's another question. Given the rollback of rights for women and girls in this country, what advice would you give us, these preachers who are listening to you now, or historians, especially in this critical moment? What advice do you give us, given what is going on in our country? And you can describe going on in our country however you want to, Bishop.
Well, there are people who want to turn back the hands of time and go back to what I call the Hallmark Channel, My Three Sons, that era of the 1950s. They want to go back to that moment, but we don't want to go back to that moment. They may view it as a golden age or the golden haze of yesterday, but no, we don't want to do that. So what we have to understand is any unanswered attack is permission for it to continue.
Ooh.
So when we hear in our context or hear where we are that they're pushing back on women's rights, every time we are checking through the government to see about this gender theology, this wokeness that has to be defunded and kicked out. Women need to go home and be obedient. They don't need to be working. They don't need to be this. They don't need to be this. When no one answers that, then they take that as permission to keep pressing on that way. So how do I respond? You respond locally. You respond as a preacher. You preach. You respond as a prayer warrior. You intercess. You respond with a letter to the editor. If it's a congressional, if it's a law, I mean, there was like House Resolution 59 to come against Bishop Buddy, to say that what she did was wrong. All she did was ask for mercy.
And that tells you a lot about their Christianity, and I put that in quotation, tells you a lot about their Christianity if they think asking for mercy is not Christian.
Well, and so this House Resolution 59 was something that said that essentially is that you can't preach what God tells you to preach. You're going to preach what we say you preach. And it's against inappropriate preaching. Or in some languages, I'm not saying it exactly. So I said, when you find that out, and if you subscribe to our newsletter, you follow us online, we tell you when these things are coming out. This is where you pick up the phone and call your representative and say, hello, House 59 resolution, are you supporting that resolution? I am a taxpayer in your district, and I'm against that.
What do you say to people who say the church shouldn't be in politics? Because I don't believe that. But what do you say, Bishop, as an advocate to those people who say, well, I don't believe we should be in politics?
If you're
which
not,
if you're AME, that's real problematic, because I just want to point out that's real problematic if you AME. But in general, what do you say to people who say the church shouldn't be involved in politics?
The church needs to be concerned about everything that impacts the people who belong to the church. And so if there are wealth gap issues, then you need to be concerned about it. If there are poverty issues, you need to be concerned about it. If it's a lack of unresourced public education, you need to be concerned about it. Because what your people are concerned about, you need, as a pastor, preacher, you need to be concerned about it. And what happens is that we're in the trenches every day. My contention is that people in politics make decisions with unintended consequences and come to our churches and ask you, pastor, preacher, to co-sign on it. All right. So after 40 years in ministry, don't come and ask me to co-sign. Invite me to the table while you're talking about it.
Right.
Because I can tell you, we've been in the trenches all this time. No, that ain't going to work. We tried that back in 1952 and it didn't work then. It's not going to work now. Or they come up with this brand new idea, this new program. And because we're in the trenches, we know the people, we have exegeted the community.
That's a good word.
All right.
If you're a good pastor, you have exegeted your community. You know where you are, who's there, what the concerns are. And if you don't, that's a first order business as a pastor.
Mm-hmm. Just like you exegete the text before you stand to preach. Right. You need to exegete your church and exegete your community.
Right.
Right. And so bring us to the table early. Don't just ask us to co-sign. Bring us to the table early so we can share with you the information that we have that you don't know because you're not in the community. You're taking somebody else's word of what's going on.
Correct. Any other questions? Because, I could go on forever, but I don't want to ask all the questions. Any other questions? And we're also not going to belabor it because Bishop, it's been a long day and I know you're tired. I know that because we talked earlier. But if there are no other questions, I'm calling once, calling twice. That's it. Okay, Bishop.
Before you go,
I was going to say last words from you.
Before you go, there are two things. One, there is happening in our community of melanated women that we are tired. We have come to the rescue time and time again, and we ain't coming no more. This is what you want. We're going to sit here and watch. And my response to that is, go sit yourself down somewhere, get some rest, give yourself space to process your emotions, understand how you feel and why you feel, and then come back.
Yeah.
It is okay to go away. It's not okay to stay away.
That's good, Bishop.
Okay. So the road to Emmaus. All right. It's okay to go. All right, boy, it was rough in Jerusalem. Yes, Lord have mercy. But it's after you have created the space to have some conversation with yourself and your conversation with Jesus. Come back. Why? Because we need you.
Because we need you.
The second part of that is self-care. We have the double whammy of being women and being melanated, which means we're criticized more. Our performance reviews are tougher than others. Our mistakes may not be forgiven, where others are forgiven or say, oh, it's okay. That happens from time to time. We have tone police in the church, tone police in the community, and so we need you to take care of yourself. Self-care is a tool of resistance. And so go get your nails did. Go get your toes done. Go get a massage.
Mine is scheduled tomorrow, my massage.
Me too. It's like, read something that makes no sense whatsoever.
Right.
Just just something to, brain dump in the evening. Brain dump. If you don't know how to do that, get a piece of paper or a book and just write down everything that you're perplexed about, that's bothering you, your to-do list or whatever. Brain dump, so that when you do go to sleep, your brain will really have an opportunity to to get the rest you then. But please don't go away and stay away. After you've had an opportunity to refuel and refresh, come on back, because we need you. But a bleeding army doesn't fight very well. So go heal and then come back, and then put together a real solid agenda of self-care and stress elimination.
All of that is good, Bishop. People are wanting to know how to get in touch with you about your ask about the research position, what they actually want to do this. People are like, yes, I want to be a part of that. How do they reach you? What's the best way?
Just go to info at National Council of Churches.us is spelled out, or you can go to Mosaic. That's the name of our project, Mosaic.
National Councils of Churches.us. .us. Okay.
Right. Mosaic, MOS, Mosaic at, I think that's the better one, because that comes directly to
Mosaic at
National Council of Churches.
Oh, and national.
.us, all spelled out, all in words. It's the longest email in the whole entire world. I'm not responsible for it.
All right. People that want to get to you, they'll find it.
Thank you. Yeah, if you just email, and then just email, it's like a cover letter. Just tell us a little bit about you, and then we'll send you the job description, writing and researching. Now I know this, people get mad at me. Bishop, why you say that? Well, because it's true. This is not a training position. People have to come knowing how to do this.
Yeah, you got to be an archivist. You've got to be a researcher. You've got to be somebody who knows how to code. You got to be somebody who knows how to do research. Yeah, this is not a fangirl position.
No.
I'm just repeating it and making it really, 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 really clear.
I know. I was in a board meeting absolutely yesterday, or Wednesday, yesterday, And I was sharing, I said, look, these are the people I'm looking to hire. I said, so do you want us to go into our churches and find somebody? Are they all going to be from our churches? I said, I'm looking for qualified, skilled people.
Right.
I'm not looking for your friend or your niece who's looking for a position.
Right.
Or your boyfriend who you want to move to the DMV area,
Right.
so that y'all can be close to each other. This is not that job. Look, qualified, detail tending, self-starter. I'm not a micromanager. I trust you to do your job. And if I had to do your job and my job, then
I just said this yesterday, Bishop. If I have to do your job and my job, I'm gonna get paid for your job, and you're not gonna have one.
I'm gonna remember that.
Because I don't need me doing your job and you get paid for it. That doesn't make sense. Bishop Vashta McKenzie, I want you to know what a joy it has been for me to talk to you again. This has been a lovely conversation, and I appreciate your ministry and just the long distance running of your ministry that's been both a sign and symbol for all of us for how to keep on in this race. And as you know, we've been in it together for a long time. I actually, in 27, will be celebrating 50 years in ministry.
Ooh,
how you gonna celebrate 25 years in the bishopric?
You know, when you ask that question, I haven't thought about it. Tell you the truth, I'm the worst at the worst of celebrating these kinds of things. And usually it's my kids say, Mom, you know, it's been 25 years and you need to have this. I said, really? Yes, you need to do this. You know, and so I really have to stop and think that 25 years in ministry, we need to do something. We need to do something.
You need to do something. I'll be looking for the email telling me what something is. Thank you again, Bishop.
And then y'all gotta come. Y'all gotta come.
Thank you again, Bishop. Thank you to all of those of you who have joined us. This will be playing back on our YouTube channel and on our Facebook page. If you want to share it with other people, please do. This has been a wonderful, wonderful way to celebrate our patron saint, Jarena Lee. Thank you. See y'all later. Bishop, if you'll hang on after we get off site for a minute, we want to take our picture.